So thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And Dr. Dilip, fantastic lecture. Learned a lot. So, telecardiology is now amongst the fastest growing branches. We are acquiring patient data related to various parameters. I'll describe them. Transmission of patient data to a healthcare setup and delivery of tailored feedback, which is tailored according to the patient need, whether it's a new investigation, drug titration, or even advising hospitalization. And the history of actually telecardiology dates back nearly 100 years when the first ECG was developed. And this guy, William Einthoven, he actually transmitted the ECG through telephone wires to a hospital 1 kilometer away. So that's an interesting perspective. So we'll briefly cover 5 things permitting time. Tele ECG, of course, this is all historical thing now because most of the ECG is now being transmitted by WhatsApp. And the beauty of this is that if you see, this is actually a GVK Emory ambulance in South as part of the Tamil Nadu Chennai acute MI project. Acute MI ongoing in the ambulance, the paramedic transmits the ECG to the doctor in the ED. The doctor advises thrombolysis. The guy is thrombolized in the ambulance and significant ST resolution. The patient is transferred to the cath lab and the artery is opened. So all sorts of ECGs can be transferred to the patient, including arrhythmia diagnosis can be made. So that is usually being done by WhatsApp now. Teleauscultation, Dr. Dilip mentioned briefly. So we all know that many murmurs in children, they are actually innocent murmurs. They lead to significant parental distress. Referrals from rural areas, where there is long travel times, huge overload on the healthcare system. So these are, digital stethoscopes. The Vyscope is one of them, wherein the sounds can be transmitted to the cardiologist at the main server. And there has been a lot of data. This was, the asynchronous transfer. This is data from UK, and found that functional and organic murmurs can be beautifully distinguished. So unnecessary referrals can be avoided, and even store and forward teleauscultation is possible. This is again data from the Royal Brompton and the Canadian groups. Various sorts of murmurs, ventricular septal defect, aortic stenosis, aortic regurgitation, even tetralogy of fallow congenital heart disease. There was good amount of differentiation between innocent and pathological murmurs. Remote diagnosis of congenital heart disease is possible, so that whatever patients are required are referred, and innocent murmurs, the people are not forced to come long distances to the hospital. And nowadays, this is Littmann scope to scope. That is, audio gathered on one Littmann model can be transferred to another anywhere in the world. And this is actually being utilized by the Japanese space agencies to listen to the heartbeats of astronauts in real time by transmitting their heartbeats in audio format to the doctors on the earth. Tele-echocardiography. So this is again parallels drawn from the aviation industry. This was part of the TESSA project and the ARTIST project, wherein experts on the earth actually used ultrasound scanner on the spacecraft, and the images were beamed back. The ultrasound scan was either performed by an on-site person, the fellow astronaut, or robotically. And this is actually it being done. This is a project which was started in 2007, and really nice images could be transmitted. So this was the genesis of tele-echocardiography per se. And this is robotic tele-ultrasound. Either the robot is managed by a technician or even a remote robo just does the scan and transmits it to the server. And this has huge amount of applications in India, because as Dr. Raman also said, there's a dearth of specialized pediatric cardiologists or good echocardiographers. And nearest good machines or experienced guys who can do an echo are really far away. So transmitting real-time images between peripheral hospitals and tertiary care centers is now feasible. And this is what is being done in India. This is a tele-rad technician, technology available in Bangalore, the CardiaSpa machine, and it is linked to the hospital CardioPAC system. So good data transfer between the peripheral hospital and the tertiary care hospital is possible. A specific thing for cardiology, remote patient management for heart failure. So this, just like Dr. Raman mentioned, for ICU patients, nowadays we know that a lot of people who are getting heart failure, they get re-hospitalized. Nearly 50% get re-hospitalized within 3 to 6 months, because the follow-up of these patients is often suboptimal even in the Western conditions. There is low adherence to drugs, failure to recognize early signs of cardiac decompensation, poor referral system. The guys often wait in line at the GP level or at the clinic level before they are actually referred to the tertiary care hospital. They may decompensate. So telemonitoring or remote monitoring of these patients of chronic heart failure, so that therapeutic measures can be instituted in time. This is very, very integral part of telecardiology now. Only monitoring body weight, which was done previously, is fraught with errors. So we can do a multi-parametric monitoring of all these parameters, and a two-way communication between the patient and healthcare providers in terms of video conferencing with good data transmission ability, so that it can be managed by the doctor using a remote facility. So either you can use phone-based systems or implantable hemodynamic monitors, which I'll briefly touch upon. Really fascinating technology in cardiology. So phone-based system actually used to monitor the vital signs of the patient. The patient used to record these and transmit the data on the mobile phone, and the doctor used to take stock of the situation and either issue alert notification for admission or advise about treatment modification. And these are data from West nearly 10 years ago, the DIAL trial, wherein the nurses actually paid attention to all these things, the daily weight, daily physical activity, symptoms, and found that nurse adjusted diuretic dose just by telephone really led to reduction in events. And this was followed by the Trans-European Registry of Hospital of Home Monitoring System only for sick patients, so that the patient records this data here, transmits via data server either to the nurse who gives advice directly or gives advice through the doctor. And it was found that again, significant reduction of events at 1 year. The second component of telecardiology in terms of remote monitoring is implanting hemodynamic monitors, because these monitors go beyond what the phone-based monitoring is doing. It records actually pulmonary pressures, filling pressures, and even the chest wall impedance, which is a surrogate marker of accumulation of fluid in the patient's body. So this is the one which is FDA approved. A small device is implanted in the pulmonary artery, and it measures the pulmonary artery pressure. So if you see over here, the pressures at admission or at implant were high, but with actually carefully adjusted diuretic doses, the pressure slowly settled down. So the doctor can monitor the pulmonary artery pressure remotely. Other devices, apart from the pulmonary artery monitors, can be implanted just like a pacemaker in the right ventricular apex. So this is a sensor lead which is implanted in the RV apex, just like a pacemaker if you see over here. And this is how it looks like on the X-ray, and it monitors various parameters, and the data are directed through the cloud-based system to the doctor who can advise therapy. So this is a beautiful trace showing a rise in the pressures, and when the doctor rings up or the nurse rings up the patient, the initially patient says that everything is fine, but when the pressures continue to rise, the patient actually says that the weight has increased, he has been non-compliant, so the diuretic dose and the beta blocker dose is adjusted remotely, and the pressure slowly settle down. So this is the beauty of all these devices. Not only in the RV, we can implant certain devices even in the atrium, left atrium. So this is a left atrial pressure monitoring device called the HeartPod, and this is a patient advisory module, which is like a personalized digital assistant to the patient. So it alerts the patient when to take the data, how to transmit it, and actually gives the instruction which are monitored by the doctor. So when the left atrial pressures are low, it says hold the diuretic dose. If the pressures rise, the doctor can advise a change in therapy, and slowly the pressures will settle down. And this is how these devices look like. They're implanted through the venous system and put in the left atrium. And if you see over here, initially the pressures are high, but with tailored therapy, the pressures can settle down. And now, even with more miniaturization of technology, they are doing away with the monitor. So it's just a small umbrella-shaped device. This is a miniature wireless battery-free device, which can be actually, this is how small it is. It can be actually left inside. It's a wireless thing. And the patient just puts on a light belt, which is a Velcro-based thing. So if you see over here, just a light belt which wirelessly syncs the device, and the data is transmitted to the medical professional who can again analyze the reading. So this is all technology in process. It is not yet FDA approved, but I'm sure in the years to come, it will see the light of the day. And lastly, what we can do is we can actually measure the impedance or the resistance of the thoracic wall, so that the fluid which is accumulating in the patient can be measured or titrated. So these are actually inbuilt in the pacemakers or the devices which we are implanting. So it can monitor the chest wall impedance, and once the impedance falls, we can understand that the fluid is accumulating and changes in therapy can be advised. Even more sophisticated system, these are wearable system, edema guard monitor, which only targets lung impedance. It does not include the chest wall impedance, which is more specific than the previous impedance monitors. So this is the most important trigger for drug adjustment. The patient just wears the device, and as you see, the trend of the impedance tells when the lung water is increasing and when the diuretic dose is to be adjusted. So lastly, remote monitoring in patients with implantable devices. As we are seeing increased number of these patients with all these implantable devices, many a time we advise them 6 monthly to 1 year follow-up just for a battery, checkup. Most of these visits are, in the sense, not really clinically warranted, because the patient just comes and waits in line, and it's a 15-minute job which can be done by a remote monitoring. So most of these visits are clinically irrelevant, not only for the patient, but it's a burden on the healthcare system. So long distances, waiting times, time off work, use of hospital resources. So data can now be wirelessly transmitted from these devices. The doctors can, analyze the battery status, can analyze the arrhythmias, as I mentioned, can analyze the fluid accumulation. So patient does not need to come every 6 months. He only comes in when there is an emergency. So this is how the device is in the patient's body. The data is transmitted wirelessly to the doctor. And if there is a change in the parameter, then only the patient is called to the hospital. And the last thing which I wanted to touch upon briefly, these are now radar systems, contactless systems. They avoid an invasive procedure. They can transmit a large amount of data wirelessly, so that whenever they actually put in there is a radio receiver, and the chest wall displacement which happens can capture the respiratory and the heart signals and filter out the environmental noises to get a clean signal. So these are miniature sensors. So this is how they detect the cardiac rhythm. The data is harvested from small sensors which are strapped to the chest with Velcro, and tiny accelerometers actually measure the rotational motion of the chest and can extract data related to the ECG and can generate beautiful ECGs. And now the technology is going beyond that. The patient does not even wear anything, and just wirelessly the ECG can be sort of algorithmically captured. So the message for telecardiology per se: faster diagnosis times, especially in terms of acute MI, faster therapy time, the patients can be reperfused early, often in the ambulance, rapid arrhythmia detection, especially for patients who have had device implants, monitoring of sick patients like heart failure, and reduced healthcare burden of routine hospital visits. So as our patient population ages, rising trends of comorbidities, widespread availability of newer drugs and devices which warrant close monitoring of the patient. And we all know, Dr. Raman also said, there is a dearth of qualified healthcare professionals and medical resources. So we have to figure a way around that. And telecardiology, especially in the times of COVID pandemic, has become an indispensable measure. We actually wrote a position paper on this in Indian Heart Journal, because telecardiology is now, especially in the times of COVID, all set to grow exponentially in the times to come. So messages, conclusion: the patient should always be initiated into home follow-up of these monitoring systems early after hospital discharge, so that the patient becomes familiar with the device, especially elderly patients. We as doctors and our paramedical staff should also be educated about the operational technicalities of these devices. These devices or these monitoring systems may be costly, but they will cut down on many hospital routine visits. And that is why, keeping the cost in mind, one should not do a remote monitoring for all patients. We can identify specific subgroups, that is, patients who are sicker, patients who have multiple comorbidities, who do not have healthcare givers at home, who have devices, so that maximal benefit can be achieved for these telemonitoring systems. Thank you for your attention.